Okay, so let's get started. So let's talk about what you do. If you don't
Sure.
mind, just like tell the audience what you do, what the heck it means. I mean, what if they may not know what it means to be a copywriter or anything? So just kind of give us a general
Yeah,
idea.
no, it's such a great question because some people think I deal with like legal copyrights and people ask me, what do you do? I'm a freelance copywriter. It's like, oh yeah, we have a legal department who deals with that at my company. I'm like, well, it's not like this. That's why I start to say I'm a freelance copywriter. So marketing and advertising. Like I want to just focus, like that's kind of the industry that I am in. But for me, as you said, website copywriter and brand story specialist is my main focus because I've just gathered and talking with other business owners and hearing things online and reading what other people are talking about, what they're looking for, is that business owners they aren't confident or they struggle with writing their message that is really going to attract the right people, speaks to the right people over and over again. And we're in this digital world, so there's so many resources, like sales pages and click funnels and all these things to get attention and drive traffic to your website. But when they get there, what are you going to tell them? How are you going to keep them reading? How are you going to sell, what you love to do, your product, your service? How are you going to grab that attention, keep them reading, and ultimately have them take action? And so I help, business owners and have other copywriters do this with their clients, just really help them get clear on their message and how they can, speak to the right people, and get them to take action, as you said, and as we cover there. So
Right.
hopefully that kind of clears it up a little bit more about what I do.
Right. Well, and it's that it's easier said than done, right? To write something well, even if it's one key sentence. I mean, most of the world is not just naturally a skilled or talented writer. And that's okay.
Right.
and you're right. Like, man, it can make all the difference in the world, the right words.
Yeah, absolutely. I think business owners too just get so caught up in trying to say too much and say what they feel is the right thing, get all this information out there.
I've done that for sure. Like, little
Yeah.
long-winded here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've been there too with clients. Sometimes my first drafts that I send to them are a little bit too much. But I like it because then I can get that feedback and see what works, what doesn't. And I even let them know when I talk to them, like the first draft may be a little bit overwhelming. I'm going to give you a variety of options here, but, just want to see, what sticks to the wall, what we can, take away and really just keep crafting that message. I think that's a big thing with copywriting is you got to know your first draft is going to be pretty crappy. It's just how you edit it and what you do with it that's going to make sure that that message is ultimately on point and going to convert.
Right. Well, and that proves how writing is such a process, like any other creative process. Like you said,
Yeah.
like at first it might seem like crap or just off or whatever, but yeah.
Throw your laptop or book or whatever you're writing on, just you want to just bake it in the microwave for like 30 seconds.
Right. It can be frustrating. Okay, so I'm wondering about how and why did you get started doing what
Yeah.
you do? I love learning about what people's journey that led you to what you're doing, what inspired it. What's the story there?
Yeah. So for me, growing up, I was a huge sports fan, still am a huge sports fan, and wanted to be a broadcast journalist. My athletic stature would not allow me to go play sports, being under 6 feet tall and being my frame. But I always loved talking about it. So I went to school for it, graduated, did some freelance reporting, and just kind of pivoted into, writing and marketing. I just found that the pay wasn't as lucrative for being, starting out as a journalist. Had a couple offers at some small stations where, to be honest, they're like, you're going to make like $23,000 a year and just have enough to live in this small town. And that just did not sound promising to me. Didn't feel like doing that. And so just kept connecting, going to networking events around Chicago, and ultimately got into marketing and advertising. Worked for a racetrack here outside of Chicago where I was in the marketing department. Worked for a company that was like an event marketing company. So it was like kind of their communications manager where I'd write emails, and write a lot of the marketing pieces. And then I got a job as a junior copywriter at an agency. And that kind of really sparked everything because I knew what copywriting was, like the words on the ads. But then I just was really desired to keep learning and, how, I can craft words that are going to, get people or that are going to influence people. So I was writing a lot of direct marketing campaigns for a lot of big brands. It was great. And then just eventually I just kind of got engulfed in this be your own boss, this entrepreneur world, monetizing your business. I could see other copywriters doing it themselves and started side hustling, doing some side freelance projects. And then ultimately was at a point where I feel like I can make as much or not more than what I'm making now and just go for it. And that was in April of 2018. So we're kind of approaching 2 years of doing this on my own. It's been quite the journey, and it's kind of where I am today. And I'm just, big thing is just, I love keep learning. When I fail and fall on my face, try to learn from it and not get so caught up. If a client doesn't like and we stop working together, it's okay. It just makes room for the right client next time. So there's a lot, but that's kind of my story, my long-winded, I don't know.
No, that's great. I love hearing that. It's so rewarding, right? Like, I mean, clearly the entrepreneurial journey, no matter what industry you're in, is difficult. And no, I don't actually recommend it to everybody. But when you do it, and man, I mean, the reward, even though it's tough, right? Do you feel like that different since it hasn't been too long since you've started on your own? Do you feel already that reward and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been such a rewarding experience in every way. I feel like I've told people this before. It's like when things get really crappy and you're feeling down about yourself, or just like if you're not really down about yourself, but not getting the revenue that you'd expect. It's just like having that flexibility and knowing that you're your own boss and you can figure it out. It just makes those hard times worth it because you're going to find wins. And I try to be as efficient as possible with writing down things I'm grateful for every morning and before I go to sleep, just to kind of keep that positive mindset. And it's been great. It's been fun, and I use a lot of positive affirmations. I know we're going deep in here, but I write down almost every morning that I'm a talented, sought out copywriter. I deserve my rates because I add value. Clients enjoy working with me because I'm easy to work with.
Ooh,
I say these things, but
that's
saying it out
good.
loud, I'm telling you, it's powerful. And there are days where like I'll go and it's just like, okay, client hasn't got back to me about a proposal. They haven't got back to me about my last round. And then I write these things down and I get an email out of nowhere. Client comes back to me saying, all right, Terry, we can move forward. Obviously it's not every day, but I mean, there's just certain days where it all falls into place. Mindset is very important.
It it is. I agree 100%. You guys, y'all got an extra treat there, a little lesson on mindset. And it's really it's true. And that, man, that's hard too. It's hard if you're not used to it, to break the ice, to start doing things like that, whatever it is, whether you're writing down what you're grateful for or something else, but
Yeah.
it's hard to at first maybe sometimes convince yourself that stuff is
Yeah.
gonna do anything. You might be a skeptic, but you're right. Like if you find your groove, your thing that helps you stay as positive
Yep.
as you can, then it's amazing. It's funny. It makes me always think when I hear about all those kinds of things and mindset and stuff, it it's kind of the opposite, but it makes me think of like a villain in like a cartoon, right? Are they not always like, you are you are amazing, you are in power, whatever they're doing on the
Yeah. The
cartoon?
mirror on the wall type of vibe, right?
No, totally. And hey, they know what they're doing. It works.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. So I loved hearing about all that, by the way.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Thanks
But
for.
but I want to talk about, because my audience, even before the podcast, but still is full of a lot of small business owners, very small. So a lot of
Okay.
solopreneurs, people doing everything, wearing all the hats, including, of course, having to write copy. And they come to me for social media tips, and you have to write caption copy in your social media post. And
Yeah.
I want to know first if you see like certain mistakes being made that's common that maybe we don't realize we're making, or maybe we don't realize the negative effects it could have. Could you kind of give us some tips on that as far as when you're writing for a social media post, some mistakes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing too, when you're starting out with writing and getting active on social media, and I'm sure you've preached this, Brittany, is just consistency, is just making sure that you're consistently putting out content and building that brand awareness. Even though if you feel like not a lot of people are watching and you have this imposter syndrome going off of you, you know, just know it's like, Brittany, for you, some people only know that you can help them with social media. They don't see your other competitors, they know you. So I think that kind of, mind frame too is very important. I think that's just a big mistake solopreneurs, get into when they start out, because they're like, well, why would somebody listen to me? Well, they will.
Yes.
Certainly people will find you. And then it's just really, you don't want to be too cookie cutter. You want to add some personality into your copy captions, and just really think about this as microblogging. That's what it is now with Instagram and
Right.
Facebook, LinkedIn, these captions. So you can get their attention in 300 characters or less. You want to have a killer first line. Treat it like a subject line. Have them feel curious about what they're gonna read next, because you want to add context to the image and the content of your post, whatever video image that you're using. I just think a lot of people don't add so much context. That's a big mistake I see. It's like almost they show a picture and then it doesn't really make sense, or they just try to ask right away. And I think that's a big mistake.
You mean
You want people,
ask for a sale? I just want to
yeah,
clarify and to make sure everybody
yeah,
understands.
sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Just want you don't necessarily want to say I'm selling this right now for like $9.99. Here's 20% off like right away. Like I feel like you need to build some authority first before you do that, and build some curiosity in the beginning and trust. And there's a lot of creative ways to do that. Again, you want to add context, but you do want to influence them to take action. So maybe they want to tag a friend. Maybe you want to ask them to leave a comment, click the link in the bio. Slowly build that trust, because not a lot of people may be aware of you. So
Right. So don't immediately be like, hey, I'm selling these green widgets today, so you need to
yeah,
buy one.
yeah, exactly.
That's a bad way to start.
Yeah. What I recently saw from another copywriter and marketer, his name's Mike Kim. He talked about knowing where your customers are on their buying journey. And, since we're talking about small businesses and solopreneurs here, if people aren't really product aware of you, which means they don't necessarily know who you are yet, so you need to convince them. Like they know that they have a problem that needs to be solved or need help, and feel like, okay, this person can do that, but why should I care? A great way to grab interest is to tell stories. So, start a story of why you came up with this idea. What inspired you? Did you talk with a friend? Were you on lunch and they said something and, that sparked some interest in that idea? Talk about that, or find, a reference in pop culture, reference that, just tell a story, get them interested. And that will slowly get them, coming back for more, and they'll get an idea of what your personality is like too.
Right. What about, okay, so this is speaking of things that maybe you shouldn't do. I don't know how you feel about this, but
Yeah.
whenever you're like maybe hype, I guess you might call it, or I mean, I guess clickbait also, but that, but that kind
Yeah.
of thing where it's like the first line is very dramatic or very whatever. I mean, I don't think that there's a problem with that in general, but I assume that you probably have an opinion on maybe taking that kind of thing too far, like being like, this is going to change your life or something. I don't know. What do you
Like
think
that.
about that kind of making extreme statements is basically what I'm saying,
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely lean towards against that right away, because that just seems spammy, and that's not something you want to come out with. I mean, just start with a genuine question, or start, add some curiosity, just of like, I'm not sure if this is for you, or, what are the two biggest questions that you have on ... It's just kind of leaving them to kind of keep reading. And it's kind of like if you're writing an article, you just want, in copywriting in general, you want the reader to read that next line. So if you're adding value in your captions and getting people, to keep scrolling down, you want to have that first line spark some interest, whether it's addressing a problem right away, but also, leave a question that leaves them curious.
Right. Well, okay. Speaking of questions, this is actually just, if you don't mind, like off
Yeah.
the fly, non-planned question that I have is because I've kind of tested all the things when it comes to social media posts, but
Yeah.
do you feel like it matters if you want to ask a question, if like one of your goals is to get people thinking, of course, clearly, but also maybe even to get engagement so you can start commenting back and forth and getting to know each other and all
Yeah.
that.
That's huge.
What do you think that a question, since people are in such a rush and they're scrolling, should be asked first sometimes to get that rolling? Or do you think that a question at the end of your post, or do you think it doesn't matter and it depends on the situation?